So we've been talking about mitosis and how that is cell division. Sometimes are those checkpoints that we talked about where throughout the division process, even the synthesis part of interphase, um, the there are enzymes, there are proteins as usual that are checking and making sure that everything is going the way it's supposed to go. Now sometimes those checkpoints get missed or something slips through, and that's where we have potentially this uncontrolled cellular division. So that's how you get these cancerous cells which create tissue which influence organs. So there is a mechanism, part of that checkpoint system, that tells cells when to divide and at what point they need to develop the spindle, move the centrioles. All of that is controlled. And so when that timing is disrupted or malfunctions, that means it could happen in the wrong place at the wrong time, especially if it's a cell like a hemostatic cell, so anything that has to do with the blood. If that happens and the cell divides in the wrong place, there could be cancerous tissue growth or at the wrong time. Because if a cell doesn't go through interphase mitosis cytokinesis, let's say it just goes mitosis cytokinesis, and it skips that all important interphase piece, then it's not doing its job and all it's doing is dividing. So it's gobbling up a bunch of energy and it's not doing its job and it's dividing too quickly. So you have a couple of things there happening. So the timing itself is really important, and that's why those checkpoints are important. But when that malfunctions, when that doesn't happen how it's supposed to happen, then you could have that cancerous growth of cells. DNA controls those checkpoints. So if you are damaging your DNA, you could be potentially damaging the DNA that controls those checkpoints for that cellular division. So that healthy DNA, if it is damaged many times, you'll have a cell commit cell apoptosis, which is cell suicide. And the cell will recognize as it goes through these checkpoints that something is wrong and it will kind of go into like self-destruct mode. So in cancerous growth, though, for some reason that DNA damage doesn't get picked up or that self-destruction mode doesn't happen or another immune cell that's supposed to destroy that cell, say it's tagged for destruction, doesn't happen. So those things could go unchecked in your body. You're talking about trillions of tiny cells that could get damaged, and your body has to find all of them, and sometimes it doesn't. The danger, though, is that in cancerous growth, one mistake many times leads to lots of small mistakes. So looking at a damaged cell reproducing and possibly incurring more damage, like we talked about, a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy starts getting less clear and less clear. So those small, tiny damages, those small, tiny malfunctions or mutations can create this uncontrolled growth. So in the top picture, you have one cell making two. So we know we're talking about asexual mitotic division. And then in the next part, one cell making two, but there's some kind of damage and it wasn't repaired. That cell would die. That cell would go into self-destruct mode and it would no longer be dividing in your body, which is great. But let's say if you look at the bottom picture, a whole bunch of cells had a mutation, something went wrong. Maybe you were exposed them to UV light, or there was some kind of poison that was put into your body. That first mutation generally would lead to a second and third, and those cancerous cells at that point are almost unrecognizable because their DNA is so damaged that they are dividing and dividing and dividing, creating this mass. Now, depending on where that happens, you might notice it right away. It might take a very long time. So cancers don't all present the same way. They don't all present in the same time frame. They don't all have the same size tumors, and some don't even have tumors at all. They just have like a leukemia type deal, affects your white blood cells. So not all tumors are cancerous tumors. If it is a cancerous tissue that has been developed, we call it a malignant tumor. So there are benign and malignant tumors. Benign tumors are cells that divide uncontrollably for no real reason. It's not necessarily cancerous or super damaged to cells, and a lot of times they right themselves. And so you will have a mass of cells, but the body they're not active cancer cells. So many times when they discover these benign tumors, they won't even take them out because if it's harder or more invasive to remove the tumor than it is to just leave it in your body and keep an eye on it, then they won't remove it. They'll just leave it in there. Malignant tumors are the ones where you have active cancerous tissue growth. And that's where you have those bad tissues that are creating bigger tumors and potentially moving forward into other parts of the body. So when you say like, oh, it started here, but then spread to another part of the body, that's what we're talking about. We're talking specifically about metastasis. So metastasis is when those tumors, those cancerous cells, potentially part of tumors, push their way into your blood vessels, whether that's your arteries or your veins, and now they're in like this super highway, and they can get in and get off anywhere they want. So that's where you have this group of cells that are traveling all over, and that's where you have this cancerous growth. It's hard to really pinpoint where it started, other than saying like, oh, this is a bigger spot than this, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's where it started. And that's where you have to have whole body treatments when you have this cancer that has spread. So again, they'll just push their way into those blood vessels and travel wherever they want and get stuck wherever they land, and reproduce there with that damaged cellular DNA and that out of whack mechanism of cell division. The big three for cancer treatments are surgery, radiation, and chemotherapy. Obviously, surgery, cut it out. Get it right out of the body, and really just try to get as many as we can. With all of these treatments, you're killing some healthy cells. Okay, so it's understood that I'm going to kill a bunch of healthy cells to really save the whole body. So in surgery, a lot of times they'll take more than they think they need just to be on the safe side. Radiations, I'm shooting a laser at the cancer spaces, at where that tissue is. High energy wavelengths, kill the cells and shrink the growth. Then usually hitting it up with chemotherapy. Chemotherapy is a cytotoxin, meaning that it's a toxin for cells, and it kills the cells. It kills healthy and it kills unhealthy. The idea being, hopefully you're targeting the unhealthy, and then when new cells come back, they are healthy and they aren't damaged anymore. A lot of times we are doing this. A lot of times these treatments are used together or in a series, and they'll do a surgery and follow up with radiation or chemotherapy, or do radiation and follow up chemotherapy, surgery, chemotherapy, some kind of combination to really make sure that we're attacking all of that cancerous growth. So with all of these treatments, the goal is to really attack those cancerous cells, those damaged cells, and hope that the healthy cells survive and come back healthy. Now, there is some risk with these cytotoxins that other cells are going to be damaged, specifically sperm and egg, because those are ones, especially the eggs, where I can't make anymore. So any damage that I incur. But again, this could be done in a sequence. These could be done simultaneously. A lot of times, multiple different types of chemotherapy. Some are fast acting, some are long acting, some you have to stay in the hospital, some you don't. It's really personalized to the disease that you have. And that's where cancer treatments have really come a long way in terms of these medicines and combining them, and how we attack, what kind of a plan we have to attack these cancerous cells. With everything we've been talking about, these different side effects with surgery, radiation, and chemotherapy, all of them have side effects, some permanent, some not permanent. But the goal, again, is to sacrifice some of the body to save the whole body. The newest type of cancer treatment, though, is really interesting. They'll take your own immune cells, your immune stem cells. So we talked about embryonic and adult stem cells. They will take adult stem cells from your immune system and manipulate their DNA. So that way they are actually made to attack your own cancer cells. So they recognize and attack your own cancer cells within your body. So that way it's a personalized treatment to you. Now this is an expensive thing. This is a new thing. Doesn't work for all cancers. But you're looking at potentially taking your own stem cells from your own body and making your own little army against yourself. It's kind of like your own little autoimmune disorder. So it's really interesting. They used it in a young girl who had leukemia, AML leukemia, and the University of Philadelphia published that research about 2 years ago now. I mean, the little girl has been cancer-free about 5-6 years, and this is the therapy that they use to do that. So all of these treatments are all really important. All of them attack the cell division itself. So all of them attack the mechanisms that help create the spindle, that create the centrioles, that empower the formation of this mitotic mechanism. And the goal is to stop the mitosis from happening so the cells stop dividing and stop creating these tumors and pushing into the body.